Welcome, everybody. For those that are still rolling in, you have not missed anything. We have not begun the webinar yet. Today, we're going to be talking about redesigning in-house contracting processes in the AI era. And this topic came about when I went to Clock earlier this year in Las Vegas, and we met a couple of in-house teams, and they both said that that's what they would like to see from a content aspect, because there's a lot of pressure on in-house teams now to use AI, and we just want to make sure that they have an understanding of how holistic this actually is. As always, please drop questions and comments in the chat or the Q&A at any time. This is interactive, so please jump in. Dory is in the background as always, and she will be answering as many questions as she can and surfacing others so that I can answer them live. You will receive a recording after this session. Feel free to share that with your colleagues or anyone who you think would benefit. And again, there are no silly questions. This is all a very new area. We're all navigating it together. So please feel free to ask any questions without concern around, whether it's silly or not, because it's not. Okay, we're going to kick this off with a poll today. There is a lot of FOMO in terms of whether you're using AI. There's just so much hype on LinkedIn. Everyone's going on and on and on about it. The reality is that not everyone's using it yet. So please answer this poll. Are you currently using AI in your workflows for your legal team? And we've deliberately made this binary, so that you're either using it or you're not using it. And we've added a hopeful yet to the second option, because we think that everyone will be using it over the next few months or weeks. Okay, that is an amazing result. So a lot of you are already using AI. I would love to hear where you're using AI. So if you could just take a moment to put your comment in the chat, I'd love to understand a bit more about where you're using AI. And I think this is also great for others to see as well. So yeah, we have a lovely community here at Law Insider. So anything that you share does benefit others and moves the space forward. So please put your responses in the chat. Okay, whilst you do that, I'm just going to tell you stuff that you already know. So this is the contracting status quo. This is how legal teams operate and have operated for years. I entered the legal tech, legal innovation space in 2017. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that every conference I went to from 2017 until around 2023 was about the same topics again and again and again. And it occurred to me that lawyers' problems are just not being solved. High volume of incoming requests, inconsistent templates and terms, no playbooks, too hard of a lift, slow approvals, decision-making, multiple stakeholders to manage with multiple requirements and interests, manual workflows and processes, and very little automation, but also self-serve. So where other teams kind of build knowledge bases and you have the ability to self-serve because you can enter their libraries and get the information that you need, it's difficult with legal because the advice that we give is often nuanced, and also you don't want someone to misinterpret something and go ahead and take an action that could put the business at risk. So we are in quite a unique position. And there's been so much talk about transformation. I think just the word transformation places a huge burden on teams to transform. Like, what does that even mean? I think thinking about the way that you update the way you work with and without AI should be more iterative. But as I said, in-house pressures are unique. The need to move from perfect to practical is something that needs to happen from a mindset perspective, but also from a reality perspective. Things may, particularly in an in-house environment, we do have a higher risk appetite often, and sometimes something that might be high risk, it needs to be considered as such, but lower risk things such as NDAs or other tasks that you might be performing that aren't necessarily such a high risk need to move to practical. So not everything has to have the same bar when it comes to the quality. And the demands of being the sole gatekeeper in a business unit is problematic, of course. Often legal is one of the most under-resourced teams. You become a gatekeeper, you do not facilitate the rest of the business to self-serve, and so you kind of have this really important position that's also quite burdensome. And of course, you're always having to balance risk versus speed. Speed is what every business needs or wants, and you're always being pushed to do it faster. And everyone wants everything yesterday, but you do need to, it's your role to balance that against the risk. And that's always a tension, because you do want to be a commercial enabler, but you also don't want the business to take risks that it can't afford to take. But the market pressure has shifted. You have tools that are very usable. Legal tech is finally built for how legal teams actually work, because they are intuitive. The rise of generative AI means that tools can now just be much more intuitive and flexible. So if you take a contract repository as a really good example of that, back in the day with legacy CLM, you had to contract lifecycle management tools, you had to decide what metadata you wanted to pull at the implementation stage of your CLM. And what happened in 2018, when GDPR came into force, there was some huge projects, technology projects, that basically went back and reviewed every single agreement that had gone into a database to pull out the data protection clause. And that was something that had to be done predominantly manually, because the AI was not advanced enough to pick up nuance, so you couldn't trust the outputs. Whereas now with AI repositories, you just upload all of your contracts, and the AI is so perfect for just crawling that data set and pulling out whatever you need when you need it. So if there's a legislative change that happens later on down the line, it doesn't matter that you didn't think about pulling that metadata later. So this fluidity, which is much more aligned with the way that we work and live and think, is something that generative AI is bringing into our day-to-day. AI can now learn from clauses, contracts, and review patterns. Contract review tools are great at looking at your playbooks and your rules that you've given them, and then pulling out the information that you need from the contract that you're reviewing, pinpointing where there's inconsistencies. And of course, you have emerging standards. I think we're going to see a lot more of standards. We're not talking about standards enough, and we're not going to be covering them in this webinar, but it is a topic that's going to come to the fore, because with everyone using AI, there will be a much larger need for standardization. But by sharing your playbooks with other people in your team, if you do have playbooks in an AI tool, for example, you're starting to standardize internally first. And I think there'll be a market impact of that. But when you're sharing a playbook, you're effectively sharing the way that you should be doing things. And often, even within your own team, that's inconsistent when things aren't documented. Today, AI can help you redesign your intake, so the way that you get instructed by the business, drafting, so drafting contracts from scratch, drafting clauses from scratch, review, so you're reviewing an agreement and you're redlining an agreement. That should probably say redlining more. Risk triage, so picking out risks within an agreement. You can do that with AI. Enforcing your playbook, and also post-signature tracking. There's probably more, like you can also revamp your billing. I'm not covering billing today because I'm more focused on your contract lifecycle, but AI can really help you redesign every part of your legal team and your workflows overall, but this is just more focused on the way that we manage our contracts. So today I'm going to show you some really practical ways. I'm also going to be showing you our tool and how you can do these things through our tool. I'm going to be showing you different angles of our tools so that you can get an understanding. And I'm also going to be showing you, I'm not going to do a demo of this, but I will be showing you just an image of the Simple Docs repository. This is an AI document repository, so that you can see what an AI native repository looks like, and you can recognize it in your demos going forward if you're searching for a tool that's going to be much more flexible. So the first thing is contract intake and triage. So at the moment, you might be receiving email-based instructions from the business, Slack messages pinging off every second. People want you to support them with stuff. Legal spends time just sorting requests. And I know that from personal experience, I would often spend half a day just on Teams, just answering questions. And you were like, well, where is this knowledge even going? What's happening with my triaging of these requests? Just because it feels instant doesn't mean that it's also urgent. You can use AI to redesign this process. And I know that there are tools out there that are officially legal front doors, as they're called, and they're great, and you can buy those tools, but there's also ways for you to automate and use AI within tools that you already use. So you can have smart intake portals that can use natural language, and you can use natural language prompts or templates to gather all the necessary information up front, because we all know the drill. You get someone from the business who's asking for something, they don't give you enough information at the outset, and then you spend loads of time going back and forth trying to gather that information, and then you can start working on the task. And then internal stakeholders can also self-serve with low-risk requests if you're using AI-generated draft or templates, or even responses that are based on pre-approved terms. Of course, you get less back and forth, fewer missing details, fewer requests that are clogging legal inboxes. So I found a great page. It's a Slack page, but I think that this kind of capability will exist across multiple tools. But the way you automate and the way you embed AI into your legal intake process is that you first need to create a single front door. Now, whenever I pitch this to any lawyer, I find that there is resistance, because legal does not want to feel like an IT help desk, bluntly. They don't want to just feel like a ticketing system. They want to be a strategic partner to the business. And I think that there is some resistance. This has got nothing to do with AI. This has always been an issue when I've kind of advocated for a legal front door. It's that they don't want to feel like they are transactional. They want to give off the personal brand. They want to build a personal brand within the business, that they're there to support, and that they're going to be more human, I suppose, than just a legal front door. But the reality is, practically, you are so under-resourced. I think when we did a survey a few years ago, we found that this was a super standard ratio. You had one lawyer to about 200 employees. So I don't know what the status is in your organization, but if you're going to be so under-resourced, you need to prioritize. And in the absence of a tool that does that for you, you can use things like Slack. So if you build a Slack bot, you can integrate GPT and Slack together, and you can get the AI to categorize your requests. So if it's an NDA review, it will go to someone else in your team. So it will categorize your requests for you. And also you can do some risk tiering with it. So the AI will ask smart follow-up questions to gauge the urgency, the value, and the risk, and then it will prioritize accordingly. And you can also give auto replies. So you can actually feed these tools your policies and your processes, and you can start to see how good it is in pulling out information from those to give answers to simple questions. Like, for example, who signs this document that's this value? That should be something that's quite straightforward for the AI to pick out and share back with the person who's asking it. We're going to share this deck after this as well, so you'll be able to access that that link and see what that's talking about. But it actually just goes through the steps of how you can build AI bots with Slack, and how you can put ChatGPT and Slack together. And if you actually go into ChatGPT and ask it how to build something that does these things with your existing infrastructure, you will probably get a really good answer, because it's just so malleable these days. I'm just going to pause and see whether there are any questions, because I see that there are 44 comments. Yes. Dory, is there anything that you think I should address before I move on?
Just quickly, can you provide, if we go back a couple of slides where we were talking about the structured data, can you just provide maybe 2 or 3 examples of some of that structured data that we were talking about?
Structured data, AI can now learn. So structured data, what I meant by this is your playbooks. So you can introduce playbooks, and the AI can now learn from the playbooks that you're introducing. It can also start to learn the way that you behave and the way that you speak, and it will pick up your tone of voice. So that's really what I meant by that. Let me know if that doesn't answer the question.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, then we have initial drafting. So the current pain is that lawyers will dig through old contracts for precedents or clauses or specific language, or like even a comment that you wrote to someone when you redline their contract. So you're always looking for things that you've drafted before, or you're having to just draft from scratch, even though you know that you've drafted it before and you just can't find it, or you don't have the time to go and dig. But now AI can draft first pass agreements. So it can recommend provisions based on the contract type or the jurisdiction. And you can also get dynamic drafting based on your template or third party contract. And this is something that I always labor when I'm demoing the Law Insider Word add-in, because it has a feature where you can ask it to draft a clause. When you get an AI generated clause that's based on a contract that you're working on, what's great about it and why it's better than you searching through your own templates or precedents is that it will tailor the language to mimic the tone of voice of the agreement that you're reviewing, so you're not having to amend it for it to be more cohesive, but it's also using the defined terminology that's in that agreement, so it's much more fit for purpose, and just that will make your life a lot easier. I'm just going to show you the AI assistant also that we have on the Law Insider website. This is free to use for the next 2 weeks. We're then going to paywall it. So if you want to go to lawinsider.com/chat, we've released this version. We've not launched this, by the way, and it's being used thousands of times a day already. But you can ask the AI assistant to do almost anything. So you can say, draft a So you can ask it to draft a full agreement for you, which it will do really quickly. The reason it says ABC Limited here is because you can also save information about your organization. So every time you ask it to draft, it knows that you are ABC Limited. So I've told it that that's my name, and it's doing this, it's drafting this agreement for me. You can also ask it things like, what are the requirements under Article 28 of the GDPR, things like that. And it will bring those up. So you can use it, it's like GPT, but for law, and you can use it to do anything related to contracts. So this is what I mean about you not having to draft everything from scratch. You could also put a red line in this and say, I have made this change to this agreement. Please tell me what a good comment might be. So this is a legal specific tool. It will create a comment for you as in its capacity as a legal assistant, right? It's not a general tool, general purpose tool. So feel free to give that a go, but that's a really good way of augmenting the way that you work. Okay, then we have contract review and redlining. So the current pain that you might be feeling is that you have manual redlines that are slow and inconsistent across reviewers. Whereas now with AI, you can compare contract language against internal standards or market norms. You can flag areas that are a risk to you. You can quickly redline something. You can prompt the tool to redline rather than you having to draft. This is saving time, and it's also just automating everything. It detects deviations from standard positions and prompts user decisions with rationale. When you're systematizing your contract review and using an AI tool, you're really not just automating and speeding it up. You are creating consistency across the organization, because if everyone in your team is using the same playbook, everyone in the team will be getting the same outputs. Whereas now it's almost impossible to know, even if you have a manual, like a spreadsheet or a document that outlines how people should deal with certain issues that come to light within an agreement, you never know exactly how they're dealing with it. Whereas with AI, you always have the human in the loop. So a lawyer will exercise their judgment where they think that that recommendation isn't appropriate, or they have kind of a nuanced understanding that means that, you know, they can make a call. But ultimately, you are really just creating consistency and therefore reducing the risk within your organization. I'm going to show you what that looks like from a tool perspective. So this is the Law Insider Word add-in. You just download the add-in here, and it appears on the right-hand side of your agreement. If you wanted to review this agreement, which is an MSA, with a playbook, you can either use one of the tool's pre-existing playbooks that are baked in, or you can build your own. And now we have a feature that we released very recently where you can upload your own document. So say you've got an NDA and you know that that NDA reflects your risk appetite, you can create your own playbook using AI. So you would go here, you would say new playbook, and then from current document. And what that does is I would recommend you use highest quality here because it uses deep think. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to do fast. And what it does is it just starts to understand what's in the agreement and translate that into rules and principles. And then it has a conversation with you and it asks you to look at the rules that it's pulling out and confirm whether you're happy with the position that it's taking. If you're not, you just chat to it here naturally. So you're not having to go and rigidly build your playbook. You're just having a conversation with an AI and asking it to iterate where there are areas that you're not happy with. When you are happy with it, you just generate your playbook. And this will take a couple of seconds, but it will start to build out your rules against which all agreements will be reviewed in the future. So if you have your own NDA template, you put it in, it pulls out the rules, and then if a third-party NDA comes in, you can review that third-party NDA against your rules that are now baked into your playbook. So that didn't take very long. And what you'll see here is that it's pulled out 10 rules. If you'd used the deep think, it might have come up with more, but this is actually quite a short agreement. And what you'll see here, if you go into the actual rule, is that it's seen that we are defining the scope of services, and it's giving us a prompt here that you can iterate on if you're not entirely in alignment with the way that it's pulled out the rule or it's expressed it. Then you can select whether you want it to be a red line or a suggestion. So here, this is where you're flagging risks if you just want to flag the risks. So if it's just NDAs, for example, and you don't really want to redline NDAs, then you can just choose suggestion and it will bring up where there's an inconsistency between your rule and the agreement that you're reviewing, and it will just say prompt you to review it yourself. But if you choose redline, it will actually also recommend language that you can introduce with a click of a button so that you can bring the agreement that you're reviewing into alignment with that rule. This is one of my favorite features. You can also enable comments. So that thing that you were doing before where you were trying to remember what comment you'd put when you made a similar amendment previously, you can now codify those comments here. And just this exercise alone, when you're doing it on an organizational level, is great for alignment, right? Because you're now all talking about what the rationale is as to why you do certain things when you're reviewing an agreement. And then you'll save your changes when you're happy with them. And then you just run your playbook. This playbook will probably come up with everything compliant because it's based on this and it's using it as a model. But this is just to show you how that would work. The other things that you can do with this is you can, as I said earlier, you can redline. So if you wanted to make a change like so this is the future, right? So we're not going to be drafting anymore. Change the applicable law to France. Oh, sorry, I've selected it got confused because I've selected something. But this is the future of, why would you sit and draft when you can do this? I know this is a very simple change, but you can also go quite extreme. You can go change indemnity to mutual. So this is a more kind of a robust change that would take you some time to do, but now the AI is doing it for you and then you can iterate on that. Okay, any questions on this or anything else that you'd like me to show before I move on?
Electra, I've been going through a bunch of the questions in the chat. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A. Specifically, one of our favorites is around some of the security and confidentiality, and then different jurisdictions. And so I don't know if you're able
Sure.
to pull those up quickly or if it's easier if I read them out, but basically questions around how can we utilize AI in a way that continues to protect our privacy and IP concerns,
Yeah.
or, how are we ensuring confidentiality is protected, those kind of things.
I mean, I don't know if you saw Sam Altman the other day, the CEO of OpenAI. He said that there is no legal privilege when it comes to ChatGPT and anything that you put in there. So I would definitely use a legal specific tool. I'm not saying that there is legal privilege with our tools necessarily, but you don't want to be putting things into a commercial kind of just a basic ChatGPT subscription, right? You want to be using something that is built for legal documents, because the level of security and the level of SOC 2 compliance and GDPR compliance that you'll get with tools that are built for legal documents is going to be much higher. And you're also going to be much more able to build a business case as to why you want to bring them into your organization. So that's from a security perspective, we have a trust center. Dory, could you drop the link to the trust center into the chat, please? So the way that Law Insider works is that it's partnered with SimpleDocs. So SimpleDocs is our sister company, and SimpleDocs is an enterprise grade tool. It works with lots of public organizations and large regulated organizations, and it's gone through some very heavy due diligence. And so we are very confident that it will pass any due diligence process that you have as well. We also have an AI assurance pack that we can share with you if you're interested in taking on these tools. But we take this so seriously because we just work with lawyers who have so much confidential information and sensitive information that they share with us. So the way we operate is that we do not train our AI model on your data. We don't use your data to do that. Because we use pre-trained models, and that's the beauty of using large language models, is that they are pre-trained, and also they are being updated. And every time they're updated, the impact on the output of our tool is huge because we just get so much more power. There's no point in us going out and trying to build our own. It's better to leverage things that are already there and are going to be evolving so quickly. So we can share that with you. We are SOC 2 type 2 compliant, we are GDPR compliant. And yeah, if you need to see more information, please hit that link and let us know after this. If you did want to have a free trial, we can arrange that for you, and we can share more information there as well. When it comes to languages and jurisdictions, it handles all languages and jurisdictions. I'm just going to show you the draft function here. Please draft a non-solicit clause in Greek. So for Georgia and Cyprus, hopefully you can see this and you can see that it's well drafted, but it will draft in any language. And if you ask it to review an agreement in any jurisdiction, then it will. But what I would say is that your playbook is the most reliable way for reviewing an agreement. You can ask this tool to give you an overview of all the risks. What are the risks in this agreement? And this is a great way for getting a quick snapshot of, and if I told it what my role was, like I'm the customer, if you can get a quick snapshot to see what's a risk here, and that's great, but it does not speak to your risk appetite and your risk profile. So the best way to do it is to input your rules, and then every agreement will be reviewed against those. And then you can pad that review with an AI review so that you can also catch anything that's not market or not standard, or that the AI thinks is just something that you should look at. Cool. Oh, Georgia, that's great to hear. Okay. Where are we? So The next is risk scoring and escalation. This kind of goes hand in hand with what I just showed you, just from a playbook perspective, being able to see where the risks lie, using your playbook, telling the AI where you want to redline, where you want to suggest. The other use case that I found recently, which I thought was really interesting, we have a customer that's using our playbooks to review their own paper. So most of our customers review third-party paper with their AI playbooks, but we're now having more and more customers that want to review their own paper. And what they do is every time there's something that requires escalation, they create an automatic comment that says this needs to be escalated to InfoSec, for example. And then that also creates a workflow for the reviewer, the lawyer that's looking at the agreement. So there's ways that you can automate your escalation process and your risk scoring process, again, through the AI playbook that I just showed you. Okay, now what happens post-signature? So post-signature, often we either put our contracts into Google Drive, SharePoint, or CLM, where it's very difficult to pull any information if you haven't tagged the contracts. If any of you have been through a CLM implementation journey and any of you have implemented a repository kind of like in the last 5 years, you will know how painful that process is. And I've done a lot of CLM implementation, and that was the worst bit, because you would always get told that the AI is going to pull out the metadata for you. But the vendor was also transparent, and they said, it's not always going to be consistent. Sometimes your documents aren't clear. They use terminology that the AI is not familiar with. So you ended up doing this whole kind of remediation piece just at the outset, because you had to re-tag that data and make sure that the data that was tagged was correct. Whereas now you no longer need to do that, because with AI, you can extract key obligations, dates, renewal triggers, commercial terms. You just upload your documents and you can chat with this enormous body of contracts that you have, and you can ask it any question you like. If tomorrow Max Schrems goes crazy and sues Facebook again, and GDPR changes, and you now need to know which of your agreements share data outside of the EU or the US or whatever, you could just go in and ask it that. And that's just an incredibly powerful tool for you to have, considering how static our agreements were post-signature previously. They're flexible, they're fluid, they think like you do. You can enable alerts, reminders, reporting, no manual tagging. This is what it looks like. So you would imagine you would just upload all of your agreements here, and then you would just ask me about your documents, which is where that little hand is there. And you just ask it, and it's almost like a chat GPT type experience where you just ask it questions about your documents, and you would get any answer that you like. The other thing that you can do is you can create reports. So if finance wants to know which agreements are coming up for renewal in the next 12 months, you can pull that up in seconds. So, and you can create a very structured table, and you can then share that with your finance team. This sort of capability is really good for bringing other stakeholders into the decision-making process as well, where you can say to them, look, I'm going to need this budget, but your needs will be satisfied as well with this. Okay. Any questions here, Dory, that I should be aware of, or that I should?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to go back to a previous question around playbooks and whether work with MSAs to financial institutions like EU and DORA, those kind of updates, are we, able to kind of support this with a playbook?
We can, totally. So we can create, I've been asked for a Dora playbook before, so I'm just going to do it. So we will create that for you. Any other requests you have for playbooks, please can you email us, because we're gonna plan all the playbooks that we're going to build in Q4. So if you do have any requests, please do share those. Dory, if you could share the one of the email, the best email for this, that would be great. Or you can just email me directly as well. But yeah, we can definitely support the creation of new playbooks, and the more people that are asking for them, the more we will be likely to build them quicker. Okay, so this is all well and good, but how do you get people to actually adopt? Now, this is a topic that does not get talked about enough. People are very interested in the capabilities of tools and the technology and how cool it is and what it can do. But at the end of the day, the amount of people I speak to that say we bought this amazing tool and no one's using it is just heartbreaking. So how do you actually get people to adopt? Now, I think that just the word legal transformation that's been bandied about for years now is problematic. We should stop using that, and we should start talking about iterative changes that are pushing us forward in the right way. So the first thing is embed, don't replace. Legal is is it offensive to say this? We are a support function. We're here to support the business. We are here to be strategic advisors and make really important decisions that are going to have a huge impact on the organization, but we are not directly revenue generating. We do, of course, save the business money, but we don't generate revenue. And that means that the people that are generating revenue have more leverage within the organization. So if they want Salesforce, they're going to get Salesforce, and the rest of the business is going to have to use it. Do you see what I mean? You can't force other people in the organization to work where you do. It's very difficult to do that. Some people have done that successfully, but it is the biggest complaint that I hear from people that have bought tools, that it's just so hard to get others into it. The same goes for your lawyers. So if you have tools that can plug into where they already live, it's an amazing opportunity and advantage, because if you're building an intake form in Slack, or you're asking them to use a Word add-in to review their contracts that they already review in Word, you're halfway there. So there's no huge adoption journey, because you're just tweaking, you're iterating the way that they're working. You're not completely revamping it and replacing it and telling them to start from scratch. The other thing that I hear a lot, and this happens particularly with older kind of CLMs, is that they would just try and implement everything at the same time. If you've got a plan as to what you're going to do, start with the smallest possible use case. And what you want to do is you want to deliver that use case and deliver your solution against that use case in the best way possible, with the biggest success that you can achieve, because that's going to be how you get your ambassadors. When you solve the NDA problem, for example, you're going to get people that are really going to love what you've done for them. And it might be 3 people, it might be 1 person, but that person then comes onto your team of someone who's advocating for change. And that's so valuable. You should really treat these people with the utmost care at the beginning of the project, because you want them to be on board and you want them to benefit as much as they can. The other thing, and I just saw a LinkedIn post and I commented on it because I think the people have not understood the importance of training the AI on your playbook. When I say training, I mean build your playbook in your AI tool that you're using. It does take time. It takes time for you to align on what your positions are. Up until now, you may have been reviewing contracts based on your instincts. If you have a team of very senior members, you probably don't even have a playbook, because you all just rely on each other's judgment to review agreements in a way that makes sense. But when you codify that judgment, and when you sit down and you align and you put that into an AI playbook, you are scaling the way that you can review contracts so rapidly. It's really worth that effort and front loading that effort in order to achieve that. So definitely kind of carve out the time to do that and make it a priority. The other thing is that when you're doing anything, when you're introducing anything, you can make your playbooks really rigid, like you can stop people from redlining, but you might not want to do that, right? You want to know that the human's always in the loop and they know that they can override things when they're not happy with what the AI's given them. And then show value in metrics. Think about the time that you've saved. Think about how much faster you're turning around your agreements, how many fewer escalations you're getting. Try and think about what your metrics are and then start to track those and then just show your value, show how you've delivered change and impact and saved money and time and helped the business close sales agreements quicker. Make sure also that you have the right people in the room. So these are the stakeholders that we've thought of, but there are probably different stakeholders in your organization that might matter. But when you're trying to design workflows that are going to introduce other functions into it, just take some time to think about who those stakeholders are, how you're going to approach them, what you're going to say to them to motivate them to take part in any of the projects. Like, for example, if you want people to start raising tickets in Slack or to only engage with your Slack bot to begin with before they come to you directly, how are you going to sell it to them? What's the benefit to them? For sales, it's you will get your answer much more quickly. And so we're not going to block you anymore. And when you need to get this speed to contract, you're going to have it because we're not going to be in your way. Procurement, finance, what do they need to know? How are we going to save the money by doing this? How are we going to help them get the best deal? Other business stakeholders, product, marketing, biz dev, these are stakeholders that might be coming to you for advice or support. How are they going to get their needs met? And really think in a very user-centric way here. Who is your user? Who are you speaking to? And what do they care about? And also, what do they fear? What are the things that they're worried about that you can help them avoid with what it is that you're doing? How to get started. You should run a pilot and you should have clear guardrails. Again, if you ask a vendor for a free trial, they should be giving that to you so that you can start to see how this works for you. And you also want to have your success metrics that you think about upfront. So if you track time to first review, a number of escalated contracts that's less, and increased playbook adherence, that means higher compliance within your organization, more consistency, less risk. These might be metrics that you're interested in tracking, and just think about what it is that you want to achieve, how you're going to track that with metrics, and what you're going to do in order to get those metrics at the end of the pilot to build a business case so that you can then go and buy the tool. We need to update the slide. We have over 2,500 customers already. They're all reporting great success with the tool. This is just so new, but still people are just gaining a lot from it. So it's definitely worth a try. So the key takeaways from this session are that you do not need to transform legal. Try to look at your requests structure. How's that working? Are you taking instructions from everywhere in the business, or do you have a single point of contact? You can structure and triage with AI. You can draft smarter, you can review faster, and you can extract more. Right, I see that we do have more questions, so I'm going to leave some time for Q&A. If you do have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to be spending the rest of the time in this webinar responding to you. I'm going to start with Lisa. It would be great to add commercial real estate focused playbooks. Yes, we have had that before. We will be adding that. Then I'm seeing what are the options for which AI. Sorry, I see that Dory has answered that. AI is great at providing benefits for each of the cross-functional stakeholders. Definitely, Georgina, and hi, great to see you here. Yeah, it is great. I mean, everyone loves it, and everyone who uses it and gets embedded really sees the value. So yeah, any questions, I'm now available to answer, so feel free to drop those here.
Electra, we've sort of covered these before, but just so that I make sure that we're giving the most current answer, I did not cover two questions in the Q&A around different jurisdictions. And I know like I said, we've covered this before, but just for the most current, because the questions are around covering Brazilian law or covering practice in Dubai. Can we maybe just touch on your best practices for prompting so that you ensure that you've got the best output?
Yeah, I think that there are two ways in which to use the tool. You can ask it to review a contract and tell you whether it complies with the laws of Brazil. The output will not be great and it will not be reliable. And that goes for any AI tool on the market. And the reason is that that's too broad. There are too many Brazilian laws for the AI to review and confirm that your agreement complies with them. The better way to do this is to figure out what rules from Brazilian law you need to comply with when you're doing an employment agreement, for example, and then embed those rules as a playbook rule. And then, so for example, Article 28 of the GDPR is a great example. It's very process driven. It gives you all the things that you need to comply with. And if you were to pull those out and create rules out of them, then you would be sure in each case that the AI is pulling out anything that's inconsistent with these rules. But if you just wanted to do a quick check and say, is this term consistent with the requirements of Article 28 of the GDPR, then you can do that. And you might need to cross-check that, but it will give you a good idea. So yeah. Can Law Insider AI Assistant be embedded in Microsoft Office? Yes, so it kind of is. So with the ask feature that we have, you can basically ask it any questions that you want. You can ask it to draft you an agreement, but the user experience is not great. So I would probably suggest that you use the AI Assistant on web and then pull that off and put it into a Word document and work on it. So what I would say is that the AI Assistant is better for generating agreements and clauses that you can compare and asking it questions. And then the word add-in is better for surgical changes that you want to make to an existing agreement. So yeah, if you go to ask here, you can ask it to do anything you like. And there you go. So you get your agreement here. How do you balance the professional responsibility to verify the language or advice meets the client's needs while leaning on AI to promote efficiency? Accurate. It's a good question, and there's always going to be a tension there. So again, just going back to playbooks, the best way of ensuring that you are balancing that professional responsibility, because if you are coding your rule into the playbook and then you're using that playbook to review an agreement, you're ensuring that the thing that you're worried about is being picked up. And then if something's a red line's being proposed to you, review that red line and make sure that you're happy with it. And in most instances, the red line's probably better than I could draft. Not that I'm the best drafter, I didn't mean it like that, but it is very good at drafting legal language. So the way that this works is that there's a really robust prompt architecture that sits on top of the OpenAI large language model that we use, and that tells the AI how to behave, and it's trained it to be a legal assistant, and we've given it a lot of knowledge. We also leverage the Law Insider database, so it has so much information to pull from in order to behave like a junior lawyer. So Jonathan, I think that as long as you have the human in the loop, which is again a responsibility of anyone who's using AI, you just want to make sure that you're using it to be efficient, but you're also always overseeing it. Are there any tools that you recommend for post-signature tracking? Yes, you can, Jessica, if you're interested in seeing the Simple Docs repository, we can arrange a demo for you. So Dory, if we can drop a link to the demo, that would be great. Thank you. Of course. Any other questions that I can answer? Okay. I'd like to ask you, as we plan for the next quarter, what you'd like to see next in terms of topics for these webinars. So if you have any ideas, please drop them in the chat, but we're also going to run a poll here. So if you could just take a moment to answer, that would be great. We've heard these options from others. So driving tech adoption, how do you lead change and get buy-in across your organization? How do you run a change management program? making the business case for legal tech, what you need to put into a business case, kind of a step-by-step, CLM versus lightweight AI tools or other. Okay, whilst you do that, I'm just going to look at what Mark's saying. Sorry, Gail, do you do legal research? Like, does it do? No, we're not a legal research tool. So we have a large contracts database, but we don't do, I wouldn't use our tool to do legal research right now, because the way that LexisNexis or Westlaw work is that they have an enormous body of case law that you can look at and it will pull from that. So we're not a Lexis and we're not a Westlaw. The problem is we have all our, sorry, Mark, documents saved in iManage, and to use your AI to review, say, all of our NDAs or all of our MSAs to pull our most favorite clauses or to learn how we like our documents, how would we do that? Yes, okay, so you're talking about a feature that we don't currently have, but that we are building. So this feature is where you would upload all your contracts and use those contracts to train the AI to respond like you would. So what I would say is that at the moment we don't do that, but what we're going to be able to do is integrate with a clause library. So you can pull all your documents into the tool, and you can still use iManage as your document storage, but you can then duplicate those contracts over into our tool, and then we'll use them to pull out clauses when you're looking for them. We would help you with that as well, so you wouldn't be expected to do that yourself. But if you're interested in that, yes, you're saying you're interested in a demo with the team, but only if there's a way to use it easily with iManage. We can also integrate with iManage. We integrate with many tools. So Mark, let's book a demo. The link's above, but Dory, if you could just drop that again, we'll speak to, we can at least email you some information and you can decide whether you'd like to see the tool. Would love to see how AI can be used as a GPT-type first-level service desk for requests from our internal clients. Lawrence, I dropped a link in the slides that you can look at, which you'll get after this, but you can see that you can use GPT in things like Slack. I'm not a legal engineer, so I can't build that out for you in a session, but there is lots of information out there as to how you can do that. And if you go into ChatGPT, you can actually ask the question and it will give you a step-by-step. I tried it earlier to see whether I would get it. And it does give you a step-by-step. This is how you would do it in Slack. This is how you would do it in different tools. So do have a go. And if you come up with anything, please share it. What information would be needed to be included in the playbook to be helpful? Magella, I hope I said that correctly, Magella. The information that you need to include in the playbook is rules. So I will just look at a playbook to give you an understanding. So this is one rule. Let me give you a different rule because that's a little bit opaque, but payment terms. So ensure payment terms require fees to be paid within 15 days of the invoice, with all fees being non-refundable. Late payments must accrue interest, blah, blah, blah. So you're basically, this isn't a prompt, but you're instructing the AI to do a thing. So that's what you need to include in there. But you can also use the AI tool to do it for you, as I mentioned earlier. How does it update for changes in the law? Gail, so your playbook is something that you would manually update. So if you know that there's been a change in the law, you would go in and change the rule to reflect that change in the law. If you're just asking the tool to tell you whether something complies with a specific law, then that will pull from the internet, basically. So it will always know if a law's been updated. As long as that's public information, it will know. So you don't have to worry about that part where you're using it in a more casual way. Pedro, do you consider it important to anonymize the personal data that exists in the document that AI reviews? No, because what happens, at least with our tool, is that once we ingest the information in order to give you the output that you've asked for, we then delete your data. So we don't keep your data. It would be impractical for you to have to anonymize every agreement that you put into the tool before you review it and then add that information back in when you've switched off the tool. So tools that are enterprise grade like ours will usually have this capability to delete the data afterwards and not store it unless you ask it to. Like in ChatGPT, you can save the threads of each ask queries. It is helpful as we may need to go through. So yes, so for the word add-in, that's coming, that's on our roadmap. For the AI assistant, that already exists. So if you wanted to have a chat with it, then you can just save your threads here and go back to them. Does this tool work well with most M&A legal documents? Yes, it works very well with any legal documents. Carol, the better your playbooks, the better your output. If you're on the enterprise level of the Word add-in, we can also support you with our own professional services. You'll get a dedicated legal solutions architect to help you build out your playbooks as well. So if you're looking at this and going, oh God, I can't imagine building a playbook because I don't have time, then there is an option for you to go onto a higher package where you also get the professional support to build that out. Chris, I think you just touched on this. Would love to hear whether there are rules of thumb as to whether, in order to protect clients and their information, some tasks should only be done pulling content from, as opposed to pushing where client content is uploaded. So you don't really upload client content as such. You're opening a Word document in Microsoft Word as you would, and then you're deploying a Word add-in. What that Word add-in does is it will take the rules that you've given it, if you're using the playbook feature, or if you're using ask or redline or draft, it's basically going to be ingesting the information within the document in order to give you the output that you need, and then it will get rid of it. So if you're concerned that the information that you're sharing is then being uploaded onto someone's server and being stored there, that's not the case with us. So and even when you attach documents, because there's a capability that allows you to attach documents, the document is not stored thereafter. And that's the case with most legal tools. Can it be used to initiate workflow to generate inputs and approvals from various departments before contract signature? Yes, so this is our enterprise level tool. So as I said, our sister company is SimpleDocs. SimpleDocs has a tool that is identical to the Law Insider Word add-in, but you also get advanced integrations. So if you wanted to route an agreement so that it goes through multiple approvals and then goes to DocuSign and gets signed, and then it comes back and lives in the AI repository, we can do that, but that's on a different package. And if you're interested, Nikki, again, Dory, sorry to constantly ask you to do this, but if you could put a link below for Nikki to book a demo, we can show you how that works. Mark, is your legal AI product called SimpleDocs? If not, please let me know the name. Yes, so we are called Law Insider. This is this here. Law Insider is the sister company of SimpleDocs. And yes, how it integrates with iManage, yes, we will share some more information after this. We'll take a note to do that. And we'll also share the link for the demo. Did you state that we can upload documents so that they can be converted to templates that are non-contracts on the face of it, but transactional documents nonetheless? It's a nice sentence to read. Yes, so what you can do now is you can upload a document that's not a template, and you can't do that now, it's coming. And it will convert that into a template. So you can tell it which fields you want to be variable or dynamic, and those will change accordingly. That's not coming for a while, but it is coming. So you will be able to upload your documents. They could be your documents or documents that you've negotiated before, but you've never turned into an actual template, and you can turn those into a template. So that's coming. If we want to rename the thread, I don't know if you can rename the thread. I don't think you can, Bharat, but that's a good shout. Let me take that back to the team. Cool, glad, Chris, thank you for that. It is possible to upload an Excel playbook to Law Insider, right? I have a copy of what was on the Law Insider, but have not yet populated it. Jeff, you can't upload an Excel document, an Excel playbook now, but we actually got this question from a customer today who is moving away from another Word add-in and coming onto our Word add-in, and they've exported their playbook and want to import it into our playbook. We're trying to automate that process, but if you have an Excel playbook, we will do it for you until we automate it. So just let us know. This would also be in the enterprise package, but Jeff, if that's something that you'd like us to do for you, please just let us know. Okay, you may have already covered this, but can we download the slide deck? Yes, 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 you'll be able to, you'll get this after this. Okay, we're at time. Thank you so much all for joining. I love the engagement. I love the questions. Thank you. If you think of anything after this, please let me know. And yeah, oh, it's so nice to see so much energy in the room. So thank you very much for being here.